At just 24 years of age, Max Verstappen has accumulated plenty of Grand Prix wins, podium finishes, and pole positions unlike any other driver at his age. Verstappen's success can be credited to the fact that he got his start in the sport earlier than most upcoming drivers, and more importantly, because of his skills in a competitive car. Much of his learnings are a direct result of having a former F1 driver, Jos Verstappen, as his father. Having spent a great deal of time on his son's F1 ambitions, Verstappen Sr. has a huge part to play on how Max has progressed since his karting days all the way up to driving for Red Bull. So here's a look at what Jos Verstappen's thoughts are about Max's talent and how Max learned to overtake from anywhere. Jos Verstappen, a former German Formula 3 winner as well as a Masters of Formula 3 winner, started his stint in Formula 1 back in 1994 with the Benetton team. His teammate at the time was the widely popular Michael Schumacher. While Schumacher would go on to win the championship, Verstappen's most memorable moment that season would take place at the German Grand Prix. During his first pit stop, an unsafe release of the fuel hose led to a small quantity of fuel being spilled on the Benetton car. The body of the car soon went up in flames, but Jos was lucky enough to come out of the incident unscathed. The remainder of Verstappen's F1 career passed by below the radar, with him having driven for teams such as Tyrrell, Stewart, Arrows, Honda and Minardi until 2003. He would later focus on racing in the A1 Grand Prix Series and the Le Mans Series, where he found some moderate success. Jos Verstappen would once again return to F1 in 2015 in the form of his son Max Verstappen, a young star in the making. The elder Verstappen has always managed his son throughout his career right from his karting days, and while many may wonder how Max got to where he is today in such a short span of time, the answer to that is simply through his father's efforts. Max has always been pushed by his father to aim higher and work harder on his race results in a form of tough love parenting. My dad sometimes thought I was too relaxed, too easygoing, but I can be aggressive. I just like to race hard. I think my dad also did that. I think I just have a bit more finesse in my driving style. That's also what we worked on from when I was very little. My dad wanted me to become better than him, said Max about his father's methods. With both parents having professionally raced in various championships, Max was bound to get into racing someday, but his fascination with cars began when he was just 2. At age 4, he was already driving a kart, and by age 9 he was winning titles all around the Netherlands and Belgium. Accompanying throughout his races was Jos, who would work on Max's karts by improving the chassis and having his son try it out whenever he had the chance. Jos spoke about Max's initial karting days and the time spent on building the kart by remarking, "I knew exactly which engine we had to use and things like that. And of course Max had to set up the carburetors for that. That's a feeling a driver needs to have. I think he was very good at that. He was very precise on what he liked to have in his kart." By the time Max had turned 13, he already had a few WSK titles under his belt and came second in the CIK FIA Junior World Championship, only behind his future teammate at Red Bull, Alexander Albon. His significant experience in driving karts would also help him develop an intuition that he has brought into his F1 performances without the need to rely solely on data. Max would go on to talk about his understanding about the car through his ability, explaining, "It's what you practice already in go-karting. My dad sometimes he would send me out, he would change something on the kart, but he wouldn't tell me what, and then I had to feel what it was doing. And that's how we get a good understanding of new parts coming onto the car." Jos too stressed about not studying data too deeply, but rather making moves through one's senses, saying, "You don't need to look at the data to make car changes. You speak to the engineer, at least I have that with my engineer now. You don't need to look at each corner. It works. I don't need to open my laptop throughout the weekend. That's because you're on the limit. You feel, you're experienced." Even after finally making it into F1, Max has always looked towards his father for guidance, knowing that he still has a lot to learn before he could start winning any championships. Max's aggression on track and his willingness to make risky overtakes are something that he has clearly inherited from his father. Jos has time and again coached Max about making the right moves that can help in his race strategy instead of blindly overtaking every driver ahead of him. Jos explained the tricks that he taught Max, mentioning, "While karting, I try to teach Max as much as possible. There are so many aspects you have to take into account. Overtaking was an essential subject for me because, in my opinion, you can also overtake in the wrong way. If Max lost time during an overtake, I tried to explain how he could do it better." Jos would further add on to this, saying, "I even went so far as to forbid him from overtaking on the straights and places where it seemed too easy. I told him, you can only overtake here, here and there. Otherwise don't do it. It's one of the reasons I feel that Max can overtake anywhere in F1. Overtaking is not a coincidence. A driver has to keep an eye on his competitor, assess his weaknesses, and get to know them. Max has developed this for years in karting. Max's daring moves and the execution of his masterclass overtakes is precisely what caught the attention of Helmut Marko, head of Red Bull's driver development program, who scouted the young Max during his F3 campaign. Later in that year, Marko would have a lengthy conversation with Max and revealed his thoughts about the father-son duo, saying, "He prepared well, and that was one of the longest conversations I've had with a driver. It just went deep, and I noticed what will and what ambition there is, but also what preparation in the past that he made with his father under very harsh conditions." In later interviews, Marko would only become more confident in Verstappen's talents on the track, stating, "Max is a different caliber. He has the traits of a future world champion, and he is just doing what is necessary to get there. It obviously surprises some that this also involves overtaking and defending. It's a bit like when Michael Schumacher came in." While Jos has been instrumental through Max's rise in the ranks of the Red Bull team as well as the grid itself, there is only so much he can do to prepare his son for a race weekend. Jos believes that Max has immense potential. However, if the young driver has to deliver and take on Mercedes head-to-head, he would most definitely require a more competitive car. Red Bull team boss Christian Horner disagreed with Jos, given the significant improvement that the 2021 car has been over its predecessor. Fathers of drivers always have an opinion. Of course, Jos is better educated and has more knowledge than most fathers. It's clear that Max drives the wheels of the car, but the car does not go faster than it can. Max gets everything out of it, drives on the limit, and does a great job, said Horner in response to Jos Verstappen's criticism. On the other hand, Jos commended his son's journey as a driver from a young age, having gone through years of living up to his father's expectations. The elder Verstappen has always been rough on his son and ensured that he developed a winning attitude along with the lesson of seizing every opportunity that would come his way. Jos commented on the hardships Max had faced plus the immense pressures of training under his father by saying, "I know I'm not the easiest person to work with and I demanded a lot from Max, but he was able to endure it all. He has always been very strong mentally. It's always been like that. Of course you can point out a lot of things to him, but that inner calmness corresponds to his character. You can't train it." With many victories, of course, he built up enormous self-confidence step by step. When you believe so strongly in yourself, that doesn't go away. Over the many decades that F1 has been around, there have been quite some father-son pairings that have had the opportunity to take part in a Grand Prix in different eras. Yet Max has proven to be much more than just another racer's son, having already eclipsed his father's legacy with a long future still ahead of him. And though misunderstandings are bound to happen, as in the case of Lewis and Anthony Hamilton, the same is far from true for Max and Jos Verstappen, who are more than happy to support their family and seek advice from each other. So, what are your thoughts on the relationship that Max and Jos share? Is Jos a good influence on the impressionable Max? Let us know in the comments below, and if you like this video, hit the thumbs up and subscribe to Pit Stop.